So we back today for another reading of Ojibwa Warrior by Dennis Bank. It's his autobiography talking about the rise and development of the American Indian movement. We're going to jump right into the Statement of Unity and jump right into the chapter that we're going to be reading today. We have my comrade Gabby on today. She's going to be taking us through the Statement of Unity. So
thank you.
I'm handing it over to you, Gabby.
Thank you, Comrade Kwame. I will start reading the preface for the Statement of Unity. The U.S. was founded as a colonial settler state based upon white supremacy and slavery, stealing the lands of the indigenous nations, breaking every treaty made with them, and confining them to quote-unquote reservations, concentration camps. As the country became more powerful, the eagle sunk its claws into other nations, making war on Mexico and grabbing its northern territory, invading Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Philippines, and either annexing them outright or making them colonies or neo-colonies. And in the 20th century, it became the major imperialist power in the world, exploiting both the people within its boundaries and those in every other country, bullying them with military interventions and robbing them of their right to self-determination. As Huey Newton stated, we have two enemies to fight. Racism and imperialism. Between the two, capitalism is primary. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism. The working people of the world of every ethnicity or nationality face a common enemy that is destroying life on Earth. Our enemy is a small ruling class of property owners controlling most of the world's wealth and resources. We must have our basic needs met to live a good and meaningful life. Food, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom from the oppression of the state, and peace with other nations. To obtain these essential things for life, we must have the power to see to it that the abundance that is available is shared equitably. Statement of Unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition. The legacy of the First Rainbow Coalition dates back to its founding on April 4th, 1969, by the original Black Panther Party, original Young Lords, and Young Patriots organization. A number of other organizations joined this coalition not too long afterwards, such as the American Indian Movement, which we are reading about, Brown Berets, Rising Up Angry, the Red Guards, and others. Since the founding of the United States, the masses had developed a number of popular movements that came together to fight back against the capitalist imperialist system in various ways around particular demands. Nevertheless, none had established a movement quite like the First Rainbow Coalition. This historic movement was the first of its kind to establish a model of class struggle like no other. Its charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois chapter of the original Black Panther Party, stated at the end of the day, we weren't engaged in a quote-unquote race struggle. He said that it's a class struggle, goddammit. By uniting with the various oppressed ethnicities and masses, they were able to bridge the gap between the various ethnic communities that white supremacy had long sought to keep divided. This class solidarity equipped them with the material basis and class consciousness to see their common class condition, therefore the necessity to form a united front against their common class oppressor, the capitalist imperialist ruling class. The ruling class viewed this as the greatest threat to their class rule, and subsequently used the entire oppressive forces of the state, police, courts, jails, prisons, and intelligence agencies, etc., in order to crush this emerging revolutionary socialist movement. We refounded the Rainbow Coalition on May 14th, 2021, with the intent of upholding the legacy of the original Rainbow Coalition. We believe that this historic example is the model for the United Front that will best serve our class liberation. By upholding the 10-point program of the original Black Panther Party, which was subsequently adapted and later expanded by the original Young Lords, Young Patriots organization, and all other original Rainbow Coalition members, we establish our pragmatic unity. The 6 disciplinary rules that we uphold ties all organizations in our coalition to a common professional discipline. History has bestowed upon our generation a common class mission to fulfill. The representatives of the capitalist imperialist ruling class, represented by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, cannot liberate us. It is their class intention and interest to uphold our common class oppression. Therefore, it is only we, the oppressed masses of all ethnicities and nationalities, who must build the necessary class solidarity, class consciousness, and organizational structures, and the united front that will ultimately liberate ourselves. This is what this Second Rainbow Coalition is committed to. This is the historic mission we intend to fulfill. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All members of the coalition, New African Black Panther Party, White Panther Party, Green Party of New Jersey, Poor People's Army, La Masa Nacional de Brown Berets, NASO, North Alabama School for Organizers, New Era Young Lords, Guardian Rebellion, and American Indian Movement NE Woodland Chapter. The 6 disciplinary rules. Number 1, members will conduct themselves in a manner that will bring credit to the coalition and will treat others with respect and politeness. Number 2, members will be sober when on Rainbow Coalition business and will not engage in any criminal activity while a member. Number 3, no member will engage in violence except in the extremity of self-defense. Number 4, members will not gossip nor be divisive to the unity of the Second Rainbow Coalition. Number 6, members will not act as informers nor work against the purpose of the Second Rainbow Coalition. And number 6, nobody is authorized to speak for the Second Rainbow Coalition unless authorized to do so. And that is the statement of unity.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Gabby. So everybody just jumped on. We actually just started, when me and Gabby get on here together, we're going to talk about a whole lot of different things and then realize that we supposed to be doing book reading. But I'm glad everybody could make it on here. Good to see you, Zen. It's been a minute. Look like you got air conditioning in there. You know, look like you profusely sweat everywhere. So we glad that you still with us.
Me too.
What's up, comrade? Go ahead, Zed.
I was just saying, me too. And yes, accurate. I had my mic muted, but it's 112 out today.
Man, that's crazy. It's only like what, probably 85. Got up to 90 today, and it's like miserable.
Yeah, y'all got that humidity to contend with that makes it feel just about as fucking hot as it is out here too.
Right.
For me, it's currently 84 degrees out here.
Wow.
It's pretty chill. Actually, it's about to rain.
That's cool. That's cool. Especially for Florida. What's up, comrade Joe?
Hey, what's up? I'm sad to say I got a jacket on. It's chilly out here.
Where you at?
In Oregon. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm real grateful that I seen that. I don't watch TV, but I passed the TV today and I seen the whole heat wave that's going across the nation. I was like, damn, some places 130. Talked to my mom the other day. She says 106 over there. She goes, but don't worry, son, we got air conditioning. I was like,
right.
As long as you stay in the house.
So you must be up there with Lobo and them.
Oh no, Lobo's like a few hours above me.
Okay.
I'll probably try to go. He's in Portland. I'm on the southern part of Oregon, but I'll be going to Seattle, Washington this coming week. and hopefully, because now when I'm in Seattle, Washington, I'm only like an hour and a half, 2-hour distance from him. Hopefully, I can go over there and do some target shooting and whatnot. Build some of that camaraderie.
No doubt. Yeah. Because you usually Central California?
Southern California.
Southern California. So you in the heat wave, hotness all the time as well. I want to thank you too again.
I'm a critter of the desert. Yeah. Okay.
For finding that Young Lord's book that we're gonna be reading next and stuff, because I don't know how many people got that book. So you really helped us at the last minute. I'm about to start putting it together and breaking it down week by week. So to get ready, because next week's gonna be the last week for this book.
It's been a heck of a ride, y'all.
Absolutely. So I probably need some help with this because this is gonna be like a long chapter. So I'll probably get tired after a while. If you can screen share that Gabby? It's
Of
also
course.
in the chat as well. And we're on
Chapter 22.
22. Yep.
Gotcha. Let me get it right now. All right, let me.
And I love that design you got too as your background, Joe.
Yeah,
That's like
pretty
some
dope.
that's some cerebral, abstract code in the Matrix, in the wormhole, Einstein shit.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of Alex Gray's art of showing all the energetic connections between everything, you know?
Right.
Okay, and there we are, chapter 22. I'm gonna start screen sharing right now. All right, there you go. Can y'all see this?
All right. Appreciate it. Hey, if I turn my screen like this, does my head turn on the screen different?
No.
No.
Still.
Also,
okay.
So am I gonna be the one reading, or does anyone else wanna read as I follow along?
I can start it off, and then if you want to jump in and take up from wherever I leave off, if you want.
Gotcha.
All right. So chapter 22, Exile. The creator took a bit of thunder and made it into a drum. The drum is a thunder and rain. The American Indian movement is like a drum that speaks all languages and makes people understand. The drum is sacred. Henry Crowdog. I had settled down at Lee, let me see, Lee Brightman's place in El Cerrito, a suburb of Oakland, California. I felt as though I were a part of Lee's family with his wife, Trudy, and his two young boys, Crazy Horse and Gal. I knew I was still being hunted nationwide, but I had become overconfident because luck had been with me so far. As the weeks passed without any sign of the feds closing in, I relaxed. I was sad, however, because Kamuk was in Wichita, Kansas jail on a charge of interstate transportation of unregistered firearms. And our little daughter, Tashina, had been placed in a foster home. The charge against Kamuk stemmed from the incident on the Kansas Turnpike when Bob Rabadow's station wagon blew up. She had been charged and quickly tried. The court was lenient with her because of our daughter and because she was 8 months pregnant with her second child. She had been given probation, but that was immediately revoked when she was arrested during the Oregon shootout. The law sent her back to Wichita for parole violation. While staying with the Brightmans, I tried to live as much as normal life as possible under the circumstances. I would take their car out and do grocery shopping for them. I would go jogging every morning with Lee or take a stroll in the park. I never really hid myself. Instead, I was on the street, always in the open, meeting people I felt I could trust. I never disguised myself while I was on the run except once. That happened shortly after I escaped from Wounded Knee. I put on an afro wig and dark glasses and a sort of Caribbean shirt, trying to transform myself into a Chicano. I felt so ridiculous that I gave up the disguise after 3 days. Every Tuesday night, Lee would go to the bar in San Francisco named La Roca to play cards. There were always 6 to 8 regulars who would sit in on the game. Sometimes they would play all night. I would have a hot water and lemon drink or 7-Up, something non-alcoholic. It was an all men get together, and I got friendly with those guys. They asked me what my name was, and I said Dennis. That's all I told them. The fourth time I went there, I lost about $10 or $15 and thought, well, I'll sit out a few. Another one of the guys did the same and we started chatting. He told me his name and asked, what do you do, Dennis? I told him that I was working with Lee on American Indian concerns. I never went into details, keeping the talk vague and light. I asked him, what do you do? He said, don't tell anybody. I'm with the Drug Enforcement Agency. I'm a narc. Oh, damn. Okay. The hair on the back of my neck stood up straight. I thought, my God, I'm playing with a Fed agent. I calmly asked, have you ever been in any great drug busts? He answered, yeah, several. I said, isn't that a scary business to be in? Nah, not really. There's two other guys I work with here, too. Guys we're playing with, Jimmy and Danny. Holy cow. Here I was playing poker with 3 federal agents. One of them turned out to be a cop with the San Francisco Police Department. Later that evening, when we were driving home, I said, Lee, man, do you know that these guys are doing for a living? He said, no, I never asked them. I think they have some sort of government jobs. I burst out laughing. Lee, 3 of them are federal agents. Lee sat there bug-eyed and said, oh, Jesus. He started to laugh too, but he was concerned. What do we do? Stop going there? I said, no, you've been at a regular fixture there for a long time. If we stop coming, that asks themselves why. Besides, it's always safest to be closest to your enemy where he never suspects you to be. We gambled with those guys 2 or 3 times more. Later, after I got busted, and Lee was out on bail for harboring a fugitive, he went back to La Roca one night. When those agents saw him, they gave him a hard time. Lee Brightman, you son of a bitch. Was this Dennis Banks you brought in here to play poker with us? Lee laughed and laughed. Yes, that was him. The most wanted guy in the country, right under your noses. Lee Brightman, you mean low down bastard? You better not tell anybody else about this. Tell anybody about this. Word had somehow leaked out that I was staying with Lee and Trudy. I had started to get phone calls at Lee's home, and I said to myself, oh, this is not good. One day I was there alone when the phone rang. The caller identified himself as an employment agency looking for Lee. I said, well, you can call him out of his office. He asked, who is this? I said, I'm his brother. Which brother? Which brother? What? It doesn't matter. Then the guy said, I'd like to know who I'm speaking with. A few minutes later, he called back again to ask, what time did you say Lee will be back tonight? He gets off work at 3:30 p.m. I hung up with a funny feeling about this strange phone call. That night, I told Lee about it. Lee said, I have a job. I don't know anything about any employment agency. We'll just have to wait and see what that's all about. 2 days later, early in the morning, Lee shook me awake. Dennis, the FBI is outside. They want us to come out with our hands up. I looked out the window and could see a number of agents surrounding the place. Lee and Trudy were rushing around, very excited. They called to me, hurry up, get dressed. Then Lee said, Trudy, you go out first. Take the kids and go out now. She went out and the feds pulled her and the boys over to stand on one side. Lee was about to go out. I knew that I would be taken to jail, so I said, Lee, I want to take a book along. He said, what? Come on, man, let's go. The police are out there and the FBI. Just look at them. Let's not give them any excuse to get rough. They've all got guns drawn and they're waiting. I said, I like to have some reading material with me. And I took one of Lee's books. It was the Gore Vidal, I think. I don't recall the title. I guess Lee thought I'd gone crazy bothering about reading matter in that situation. I stepped outside with the book in my hand and the agents began shouting at me, put your hands up, drop the book, drop it now. So I did. Then one of them yelled, turn around, put your hands behind your back. I did as I was told. Then the same guy yelled, "Get down on your knees, down on your knees." I was not going to resist him, but at the same time, something within me would not let me go down on my knees. I felt it was something I just couldn't do. The guy kept screaming at me, "Get down on your knees, lie face down on the ground." I just stood there, not moving an inch. Finally, an older agent walked up to me. I still had my hands in the air. He said, "Put your hands behind your back." I did. He said, "Mr. Banks, put your hands behind your back." I did. And he handcuffed me. He said, "Come on, let's go." I said, "Can I get my book?" He reached down and grabbed it. He repeatedly repeated calmly, "Come on, let's go." He put me in the squad car. I watched these FBI agents, all young kids except the one who had handcuffed me. They looked scared and green. They took us into jail to El Sorrento to book us. They did take Trudy, just Lee and me. They held Lee on suspicion of harboring a fugitive and charged me with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. We stayed in jail for one night. Lee was released in his own recognizance, but was told he would be charged for harboring me. I was transferred the next day to the county jail in San Francisco. While I was there, Marilyn Brando, Vine, Deloria, and Harry Belafonte came to visit me. That was a morale builder. Finally, I was arraigned on a charge of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Unfortunately, that was not all. I was also being held for extradition to South Dakota. This was serious. I had no illusion of what would happen to me once Jank Lowe had me in his power. I was arraigned on the fugitive charge and remained in jail for about 3 weeks. My bail was set at $100,000. A friend of mine, Fred Lane, who was executive director of the Indian Center in San Francisco, came to visit me. He put up the Indian Center as collateral for my bail. Oddly enough, the judge accepted the center as bail security and announced defendant is released on bail. I was released the same day and had a good reunion with all my friends, sharing the evening with the whole Indian community. Temporarily, at least, I was at liberty. It seemed as though I was the only one free at the time. Ann May in a South Dakota jail on a different charge. Leonard Peltier had made good his escape to Canada, but was on the run. Russ Ratner and Kenny Loudhawk were being held on $100,000 bail each. And sadly, Kamuk was still behind bars in Wichita, Kansas. Her bail was only $20,000, but that was still a lot of money. A man in San Francisco contacted me offering to help raise Kamuk's bail. It was Jim Jones, evangelicist, called by some a cult leader. His church, the People's Temple, had a big following. I had met Jim Jones earlier when he raised some money for the Wounded Knee defense effort. He was himself part Choctaw, and very sympathetic to the Indian cause. This was the same Jim Jones who later committed suicide with some 900 followers in Guyana. However, when I met him, he showed no signs of paranoia that would later destroy him. I gladly accepted his offer. Kamuk was in a difficult times. The state officials had taken Tashina away and put her into a foster home. On December 30th, 1975, Kamuk went into labor. Prison officials refused to release her from custody for her delivery. So she gave birth by C-section in a prison hospital. We called our new daughter Tiopa Maza Win, Iron Door Woman, when she was born in jail behind an iron door. The prison doctors tried to persuade Kamuk to let them sterilize her, pointing out that in her situation, she should not have any more children. She, of course, told them to go to hell. Then they presented her with a bill for over $2,700 $4.70 for the surgery. Prison conditions were very harsh. I was worried sick about her since I couldn't be there with her. Commute sent me a letter telling me about her love for me and for our movement. She spoke of the determination to maintain the struggle for as long as she lived. She told me about her feelings for Tiopa Mazawin and how prison officials would not allow her to hold her own tiny infant or breastfeed her. It was a heart-wrenching letter. Kamuk closed it with, "But we will survive even under these rotten conditions." I have quoted her letter many times, and we did survive. Simon Ortiz, the famous Indian poet from Acoma Pueblo in New Mexico, wrote a poem, "The Father of Iron Door Woman." It reads in part, "At the Unitarian Church, he brings his child to us. She is swathed in blankets, and he holds her tiny face to us, and he says, 'This is Iron Door Woman. From here on, I want to be known as the father of Iron Door Woman.' Iron Door Woman was born behind the iron doors of jail, and the father tells us all these years we have been knocking on iron doors, all of us, not just Indian people. The tiny girl moves in his arm and her eyes shine. It is possible then to see the life which includes us all." It was arranged for Kamuk's sister, Bernice, to take Tiopa and our firstborn, Tashina, with her while Kamuk waited out her jail time. Somehow we all became stronger through the pain inflicted upon us. If one does not become mean because of it, becoming an enemy to oneself, then pain can give strength to a person and add a feeling of victory to mere survival. When I met with Jim Jones, he was very upbeat about Kamuk. He told me, "We got to do something to get your wife out of jail." He arranged for a big gathering at his temple, which was regularly attended by a huge crowd. First, Lee Brightman spoke. I followed with a 10-minute speech. I said how happy I would be if we could raise the money for Kamuk's bail. Then Jim described Kamuk's suffering. He was very charismatic, skillfully playing on the emotions of his congregation. He was so persuasive that I felt that like going into my own pocket to give to our cause. He even orchestrated part of his sermon with soft music, a choir in the background accompanied by the old cathedral organ. People kept giving and giving. Jones asked if there was anyone in the audience who could come up with $20,000. When nobody stood up, he asked for $10,000. A woman stood up and said, "I can give $5,000 towards this bail." After that, we were able to raise the whole $20,000 in checks and cash within a half an hour. Wow. I was so happy that I burst into tears. I told the crowd, if only my wife could witness all this is happening here. Early the next morning, Jim and I went to the bank and changed the checks, money orders, assorted bills, and loose change into large bills, which we took to the Justice Department's office. They notified the U.S. Attorney's Office in Wichita that the bail money had been secured and that Kamuk could be released at once. I stayed around until everything had been confirmed and I had proof that Kamuk had been told of the good news. There was still quite a bit of money left in excess of the bail. So Jim said, "I'll take care of Kamuk's flight tickets." I had planned to meet Kamuk at the airport, but Jim said, no, Dennis, wait at the church for her. Always the PR man, Jim didn't want to deprive all the people who had contributed bail money of the thrill of seeing Kamuk and me reunited. I told him, "This is my wife. These are my children. I haven't even met my youngest yet. I should be the first person they see as they step off the plane." But Jim prevailed. A few of his people brought Kamuk right from the airport to the temple. I met Kamuk at the door where we hugged each other before the big event took us over. On that Sunday, the temple was packed with more than 3,000 people. Music blared out a welcome for us. A lot of the American Indians had come and they had the drum going strong. They brought Kamuk and the little ones up to the stage. People were screaming and yelling. Kamuk began to cry. She wanted to thank the people for their help, but could not get the words out. She could only sob. I went up on the stage and proudly stood by her. There was another big roar and Indian war whoops. When all of the noise began to die down, Jim Jones asked for quiet. He said, 1 week ago, we made a pledge that we was going to have commute in this temple, that we was going to raise the money to get her out, and we did that. And she is here tonight with her newborn baby and reunited with her husband. The people began yelling again as though they were beside themselves with joy. That was the beginning of our relationship with Jim Jones. When I first met Jones, he was very upbeat and positive. He had a lot of strength and shook hands firmly. I liked the way he presented himself. As time went by, his character seemed to change. He was still upbeat in general, but I sensed a kind of paranoia creeping in. Suddenly, Jim no longer wanted to talk with people over the phone. He began to be haunted by the thought that people were spying on him. He preferred to meet privately with people. He started to build security fences around himself, using a protective shield of followers acting as his bodyguards. Each time I visited him, he seemed worse. His paranoia was becoming obvious. He perspired all of the time, frequently taking off his glasses to wipe the sweat from his face. He got himself a pair of very dark sunglasses so people couldn't see his eyes. He was popping pills all the time. He spoke in undertones so softly that I could hardly understand him. He was afraid to be overheard. He would whisper to me, Dennis, did anybody come here with you? Did anybody follow you? Did you check your rear view mirror? I would tell him, Jim, nobody followed us. He would whisper back, you can't trust anybody. The FBI, the CIA, they're all over the place. They've got my phones tapped. They're infiltrating the temple. He would go on and on like that. He told me he was going to Guyana, that some of his people were already there. He said, I'll lead them into the jungle where we will be safe. In Guyana, I will rebuild my temple and create a community. I'd like you to come with me. You can build you a sweat lodge down there and do whatever you want. But I need your help. I need your spiritual support. All of these people are leaning on me, depending on me as their spiritual guide. I can't carry this burden by myself. I need you as a friend. Remember, I'm Choctaw, so you must do this for me. I'll build you a home down there, and you and your family will never have to worry about money for the rest of your lives. It was hard for me to say no to him because I owed him a debt of gratitude. But I definitely did not want to stay with him in Guyana. I tried to make him understand that my work had to be done in America, not in some foreign country, that my place was with my people, not with his. He did not want to hear it. He went to Guyana and took half of his hundreds of followers with him. Jim got in touch with me a few times after that, always urging me to join him. I have 3 flight tickets for you, Dennis. I told him I might visit him sometime, that I would think about it. And that's where we left it. Sometime later, I got a call about 9 o'clock one night from a friend in San Francisco saying, Dennis, did you hear the news? I said, no, what news? He said, something happened in Guyana. Jim might be dead. We don't know anything for sure yet, but they said there are hundreds of people dead from there down there at his camp. He went on to say that there have been some shots fired. According to reports coming in, a congressman from California had been killed. I turned on the TV and sure enough, there was news coverage of a mass suicide, a shootout at the airport, and reports that everyone at the camp was dead, including Jim himself. I had thought Jim had some 300 people down there, but it would turn out that more than 900 people were dead, mostly by poison. Anyone want to take over from here?
I'll take over, if that's okay.
All right.
I think Jim Jones had been on a road of self-destruction for some time. He had been suffering from delusions that everyone was after him. During the 3 months he had been in Guyana, he had become like a snarling wolf held at bay. Also, I just want to say, if y'all hear any thundering in the background, it's very rainy back here. Just want to let y'all know. I heard stories of physical abuse at the camp, of children having been beaten. There were rumors that he had reserved a number of women for himself, even married ones. I was told his behavior had become bizarre in the extreme. Kamuk and I often talked about what might have happened had we gone to Guyana. Probably not anything good. If we had been there and Jim had ordered us to drink a glass of cyanide, I am sure we would have refused. Would he then have ordered some of his men to shoot us, as had supposedly happened to a few who did not want to join him in death? Somehow, I don't think so. I believe that even in his worst delirium, he would have recognized me as a friend. After my reunion with Kamuk, I still had to wage a desperate battle to find sanctuary in California. I was a fugitive from justice, and it was essential to prevent my extradition to South Dakota. As state attorney general and later as governor, Bill Janclow used his considerable influence and resources and the whole resources of the whole state of South Dakota to get me back under his power. I fought back with my own campaign to avoid extradition. This was not only my battle for survival, but also a very personal, intense duel of Dennis Banks versus Bill Janclow. I started the ball rolling by holding a press conference on February 28th, 1976 in San Francisco. I told the press that I could never get a fair trial in South Dakota and that Janclow once had publicly proposed putting a bullet through my head. I also spoke of plans to gather 1 million signatures on a petition to Governor Brown to grant me asylum and deny my extradition. We canvassed the state from top to bottom. Marlon Brando helped by calling on many of his celebrity friends to lend their moral support. The battle went on for 3 long years. Finally, I had a face-to-face interview with Governor Edmund Brown Jr. in the state capitol, just the two of us. He told me, "Well, Mr. Banks, when we leave here, I am going to sign a letter to Governor Janclow denying your extradition to South Dakota. I would appreciate it if you would put in your newsletters that people stop writing me letters on your behalf. I am positively inundated by letters and telegrams in your support." I replied, "Governor Brown, thank you, sir. I'll gladly stop this flow of mail." In a one-page statement, Governor Brown explained the reason for his decision. He stated that he was convinced bodily harm or even death might come to me if I were sent back to South Dakota. He also said polls indicated that racial prejudice was rampant in South Dakota, a fact that would prevent me from getting a fair trial there. Not surprising. He said that not one single fact alone had led to his decision, but that the total picture made him fear for my life if he let me be extradited. Janclow, of course, was outraged. He started a lawsuit in California to have Brown's decision reversed. The third court of Apples ruled in Janclow's favor, determining that I had to be sent back to South Dakota. Brown prominently challenged this ruling before the California Supreme Court, which concluded that only the governor had the right to decide extradition matters, not the courts. 2 days later, Brown officially notified South Dakota that he was denying extradition. Janclow did not give up. He somehow managed to send 93 convicted criminals to California instead of to prison because, as he put it, California seems to welcome outlaws. In the meantime, he waited until Brown was replaced by another governor. I would be safe only as long as Edmund Brown Jr. was governor of California. After Kamuk and the children joined me, I felt that we no longer should burden Lee and Trudy that we should get our own place. We moved to Davis, California, northeast of San Francisco, where I enrolled in the DQ University. The D stands for Decanawida, the prophet and statesman who formed the Five Nations Iroquois Federation. The Q means the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl, I believe.
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl, the plumed serpent, healer and bringer of corn, the food that enabled humans to survive. The university, which occupies some 640 acres of what had once been an army communication center, chose this double name to symbolize the unity of North American and Mesoamerican Indians, an area of study that DQ University specializes in. I knew that I might have to live in California for a long time. I spent a total of 80 years in exile there. Damn, 80 years. That's a whole lot. Although my stay was enforced, the time in California was very fruitful for me. I enrolled at DQ for a 2-year course of study. Besides the basics, I took some electives: social studies, world history, native history, ecology, and other subjects that interested me. I felt the need to establish a sweat lodge at DQ. Daryl Standing Elk and I put one up, and from then on we had sweats regularly. I was a sun dancer, but could not leave California to dance in South Dakota. I thought, if I cannot go to the sun dance, maybe the sun dance will come to me. I asked the university board whether we could hold a sun dance at DQ. They designated a place in the northeast corner of the campus for it. But at that time, there was no one in California who could conduct a sun dance. Then Leonard Crow Dog came out to visit me. I offered him tobacco and we smoked a pipe. I asked him, Crow Dog, is it all right to hold a sun dance here so far away from Lakota country? He said, absolutely. Even if you are the only dancer and you have only one singer, you must do it. He pointed to one particular spot and said, do it right here. Daryl, my brother, Mark, and I prepared the Sundance ground on that very spot. We began watering that bit of ground thoroughly, and in about 3 weeks, the grass was coming up. We knew we would have a good area for our Sundance. Two medicine men from South Dakota, Charlie Kill's enemy, and Archie Fire Lame Deer, the son of John Fire Lame Deer, came to DQ to help Crow Dog run the dance. At first, it seemed as though we would have to make do with only 6 dancers, but soon we had over 30 men who would fulfill their pledge and dance at DQ. We had women dancers as well, Carol Standing Elk and Pearl Brandon among them. People from the Pitt River Reservation near Vancouver, Canada, and Klamath Indians from Oregon arrived to take part in the first Sundance ever held in California. In the end, about 500 or 600 people gathered around the Sundance circle. It was a beautiful dance that is still remembered. The university became a place of spirituality as well as learning. Sweats were conducted, Indian-style marriages took place, naming ceremonies were held. Young people began to connect with their Indian religion. I had to make a living, so I lectured at other universities and made speaking engagements. I also started teaching a course at DQ called Tribal Federal Law, as I was a registered tribal attorney on the Rosebud Reservation and had become familiar with the subject. It wasn't too long before I became an assistant vice president of the university. In the spring of 1979, I was offered a chance to teach a course called The Media and the American Indian at Stanford University. The same year, DQ was looking for a chancellor. They had never had a chancellor before. I was the only candidate, and they hired me for $12,000 a year. God damn. I was responsible for developing a long-range curriculum, overseeing spiritual ceremonies, being in charge of political gatherings, making the public aware of DQ, and raising money. I was the last chancellor at DQ, and maybe from a technical point of view, I still am their chancellor since I was never fired or terminated. For 6 years, I was an an academician and found that I enjoyed it. Life usually doesn't give us one thing at a time, but a whole banquet of things at once. I just want to say I find it really interesting how all these revolutionaries, a lot of these prominent revolutionaries came from universities. Fred Hampton, Emory Douglas, and so on and so forth. Life usually doesn't give us one thing at a time, but a whole banquet of things at once. Kamuk and I were blessed with another little girl 5 years later after Ethiopia was born. This child was the first one I actually saw come into this world. When it was Kamuk's time to give birth, the doctor asked me if I wanted to go into the delivery room. At first I thought no, I'll just be in the way, but the doctor said, "Come on, it's all right." He showed me how to scrub down and put on a cap and mask, apron and paper pants and little coverings for my shoes, even rubber gloves. It was going to be a cesarean birth. So Kamuk was given an injection to deaden the nerves in the lower half of her body. Also, let me raise the brightness. Sorry about that. There we go. That should be better. To deaden the nerves in the lower half of her body. There were about 5 doctors around her. They asked, "Well, Mr. Banks, are you ready?" I said, "Okay." The head surgeon made an incision. It must have been about 8 inches long, from Kamuk's belly button on down. There was a little blood, which was suctioned away. Another incision was made through a clear film surrounding the baby. I was utterly fascinated by what I was observing. The doctor said, "There she is, Mr. Banks. She just inside there. We are going to bring her out." He reached in and pulled out the baby. It was moving and crying, making little noises and stretching already. There was a big, long navel cord attached to her and to Kamuk, and I watched the doctor sever it. Then the baby was placed on a scale. She weighed 10 pounds. That's why we nicknamed her Chubbs. Aw, that's cute. I leaned over to speak with Kamuk. She was pretty groggy as she asked, "Are they through yet?" I said yes. Then she wanted to know whether it was a boy or a girl. I told Kamuk that we had a lovely 10-pound girl. Kamuk kind of sighed. I gave her a kiss and she went on to sleep. The wonderful experience of watching our baby come into the world was so precious to me. It gave me a new awareness of what birth giving involves. It was an unforgettable moment for me. Kamuk was amazed when she was able to hold her baby for the first time and said, "Oh, she's so chubby." Well, she's really a Chubbs. So that nickname stuck. Chubb's real name is Tokala, meaning kit fox, but nobody calls her that. She has been very close to me over the years, and I think it began when I saw her for the first time coming straight into the world from her mother. In 1982, Edmund Brown Jr. decided not to run for governor of California again. Republican George, oh boy, George
Duke Majan.
Sorry, what?
Duke Majan.
Duke Majan, a hard-nosed law and order fanatic and former Attorney General of California, was elected governor. He made it known that if he received a request for my extradition to South Dakota, he would honor it. I prepared for the worst. I knew there was a 60-day grace period for me between the election and the swearing in ceremony when Dick Mujan would take office. I would have to use that time to figure out whether Kamuk and I would leave the country or find another state to seek sanctuary. In the end, we settled upon New York. The governor, Mario Cuomo, was a progressive Democrat. He had shown himself to be sympathetic to Indians and had invited representatives of the Six Nations to be present in his inauguration. Also, as New York Secretary of State, Cuomo had supported the Mohawks during their controversial Moss Lake takeover. So New York was our best bet. I made some preliminary calls to my old friend Chief Oren Leon's, faith keeper of the Onondaga. Am I pronouncing that right? Onondaga? Onondaga Nation in upstate New York. He promised me sanctuary on his reservation. I phoned my lawyer, Bill Kunstler, who told me, Dennis, if you choose to come to New York, you are going to get a good reception. I can guarantee that you will not only have my legal support, but also that of the whole Center for Constitutional Rights, of which I am the head. So I decided to go first to New York City, submit to arrest, fight extradition, and see what Governor Cuomo would do. Kamuk was to come later so as to not arouse suspicion that I was planning to flee California. Kunstler was able to find out from one of the people in the Kamusian's office that an extradition warrant for Dennis Banks had arrived from South Dakota, and that Dick Musion planned to execute the warrant as soon as he was sworn in on January 2nd, 1984. I decided to go out to California on December 26th. Kamuk, the children, and I lived at the time in a little rented house in a subdivision of Dixon, California, just a few miles from Davis. Already, we had noticed a police car stationed around the entry streets in our area, and we knew why he was there. In addition to the watch on our home, we assumed that our phone was tapped. I told Kamuk, it's time. We've got to get out of here. I went into the garage and packed two suitcases full of things that would last me at least a month. We kept those bags ready so I could leave at a moment's notice. I had to make sure that Kamuk and the children were out of the house in case the law enforcement people stormed our place with guns blazing. So I arranged for my family to be in Sacramento at the time of Dick Musion's inauguration. During that night of December 25th, we secretly passed the suitcases to a friend who would help me get away. My plan was to go about my daily chores, driving the hardware store, the laundromat, and the grocery store, as if the last thing on my mind was to go on the lam. At the grocery store, I parked and went out inside. The police car that had followed me from a distance stopped and turned around and drove back to his usual observation post, assuming that everything was on the up and up. I called Kamuk from the store, saying that I would be home at about 3 o'clock. I was pretty sure that our conversation would be overheard. Then I slipped out a side door and got into a car with some friends who were waiting there for me. We drove nonchalantly over the state border into Nevada, where other friends were waiting to transport me further. We stayed in Reno for about 6 hours doing a little gambling. I lost about $20 that night. Later, I was picked up at the MGM Grand Hotel and taken to Salt Lake City, where I transferred it to yet another car. That vehicle took me to Minneapolis. My sister Mary Jane and a friend, Fred Short, had agreed to drive me that last leg of the journey from Minneapolis to New York City. We drove towards Chicago, traveling to Interstate 80 bound for Manhattan. At Chicago, Interstate 80 is joined by Interstate 90, which later heads up through Pennsylvania into upstate New York. Fred drove most of the way, too long as a matter of fact. He was so tired that Mary Jane had to take the wheel away from him, and he fell asleep in the front passenger seat almost immediately. I was resting in the back when all of a sudden Fred came out of his sleep and grabbed for the wheel. The car lurched off control for a few seconds, but we had not been going that fast and the roadway was straight with no turns. Mary Jane had to slap Fred's face to wake him up. He just looked blankly at her, let go of the wheel, and went back to sleep. Damn. Later on, when Fred took his turn again driving, I reminded him, take 180 all the way into New York City. He said, okay, Dennis. Mary Jane and I dozed off. I woke up at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing I saw was a sign, New York, 200 miles. I said, Fred, where are we at, man? He said, just coming into Syracuse. Syracuse, Fred, we're way off course. We're not supposed to be up here. Right now, we're supposed to be getting to New York City. He just looked at me and said, Jesus, I got on the wrong highway. We stopped for coffee and sat there in silence. I did not want to get into a conversation with Fred while I was upset, and neither did Mary Jane. It occurred to me that we were close to the town of Nedro on the Onondaga Reservation, the home of my friend Chief Oren Leons, was who I was supposed to meet in New York City. He was probably waiting there for me already. I told Fred and MJ, let's go to Onondaga and see Alice Papino. Papino? She's a clan mother there and an old friend of mine. So we got back on the freeway. Before long, I was knocking at Alice's door. She opened it and exclaimed, "Dennis Banks, what are you doing here? Don't just stand there. It's cold. Come on in." She immediately started heating something up for me as we eat. For us to eat. We drank coffee, laughing and talking about old times. Fred and Mary Jane went into the next room to sleep. Alice asked me, "Where are you headed?" I said, "I'm on my way to New York City to turn myself into the authorities there." Alice said, "Why do you stay overnight? You're all tired. You're all tired out, and it's snowing." So it was. She gave me Oren's number in New York. When I called Oren, he said, "Dennis, what on earth are you doing in Nedro? Listen, I'll be coming back up there tonight. Stay there." I watched the snowflakes swirling in the dark sky and decided to get a good night's sleep. As fate would have it, I never made it to New York City. Oh no, that doesn't sound good. And that's the end for chapter 22.
All right, pleasure. Appreciate that, comrade.
Of course. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was, man. That was a adventurous chapter right there. I think one of the ones that stand out to me as a couple things to this chapter is that he developed a relationship with Jim Jones. Every time I read a book talk about Jim Jones, I always intrigued me of how that he had a relationship with different people and stuff. And I didn't realize that Dennis Banks and his family knew Jim Jones, and he actually helped him get his wife out of prison, out of jail. I'm glad he didn't go down to Guyana down there in South America with Jim Jones, or he might have never been alive long enough to tell this story. You know what I mean?
Indeed. It makes it even more sad to hear what happened to him after the fact that he helped Dennis Banks and his wife out. Like after hearing what he did in Guyana, I'm like, man, what happened? What happened to him? It's just wild.
Yeah. And it seemed like, and the interesting part about this is that in the beginning, he said he was normal. And then after a while, he started to become paranoid and started to change up. I'm pretty sure they was infiltrated. I never took a lot of time to really study. I probably watched a documentary or two about the People's Church and stuff. Kind of find out he's originally from Indiana. Jim Jones originally from Indiana.
Wow. Kwame, tell me if I'm wrong, but you know what this sounds like? What happened to Jim Jones, except for the whole Guyana part. But you know what sounds very familiar to? It sounds exactly what happened to Huey P. Newton. Yep. It sounds eerily familiar what happened to him. Sounds eerily familiar.
Yeah. Joe, I see your hand up.
Good afternoon, comrades.
Good afternoon.
One of the things that you said that was popped out to you in this chapter was Jim Jones. The only reason he was able to even afford to help in that bail money was that he would take people's Social Security checks and all their checks, and he made that compound down in Guyana. And when we're talking about powerful people, I guess he was powerful to an extent that he made hundreds commit suicide.
Man.
He had armed
That's
gun
wild to
shooters.
me.
He had armed gun shooters there for those that did not want to partake in that suicide. I think we
Yeah.
heard about it recently with bunk bed. Oh no, recently something there was another quote.
Haley's Comet. people?
Haley's Comet, where with the Haley's Comet, and a lot of them committed suicide also. But I mean, but for
That's
him
just
to have that connection and to bring it into this chapter, it's pretty crazy, far fetched to me. But another
Mhm.
thing too, you know, when he mentioned the support of the actors that he had, one of them being Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Comrade Gabby, you might not know Marlon Brando, but he's come out in a lot of movies, and he's most
I have no idea who
depicted
that
as the
is.
Godfather to the Godfather movies.
Oh, right. I think I heard y'all talking about that. I've never watched The
The
Godfather. I
Last
know, a
Eagle in
crime.
Paris, and so forth.
Better-
Oh, so anyway, so when we're talking about this time period, we're talking about historical people because a lot of people came to his attention. Even Marlon Brando in 1973 did not take his what do you call that award they give actors?
Oscar.
The Oscar. He
Uh-huh.
refused to take the Oscar for that his title in the Godfather movie, and he had an indigenous woman get up there and speak and why he would not take that title. So that has sparked interest. And then, you know, even at that time, John Wayne got out of his seat, like talking shit at that event. And I was like, it just goes to show that period of time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things mentioned in this chapter. We can also take into heed that, you know, on the run and having supporters, which was very beneficial. And they talk about Kamuk. Dennis Banks was in his late 30s, and Kamuk was 16 when they got together.
Which is
So in
very
today's
concerning for
period
me.
in time, that would definitely raise question.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, you'll hear people from the old days where you used to have kids so that we can all work on the ranch or the farm or just for the family to survive. But so that was another thing, like, it kind of shook me. I don't want to talk too much about Kamuk because we're on live, and you know, who knows if her descendants can hear stuff like that. So not to talk negative about anyone,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of things in question about her too, and that's not for me to say. But anyway, I really appreciated this chapter, and I almost felt like we read it before, or I already studied it already before, because it was like deja vu. The whole
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. I felt that.
the whole reading was deja vu. So, but
It kind of sorry.
yes. Go ahead. I'll be quiet now.
No. Sorry. I was just gonna say it reminded me a lot of chapter 20.
Oh,
That's what it reminded
maybe
me of.
maybe that's what it was. It was like uh you know, reiterating what happened in chapter 20, but it was almost word for word. Um, and then to find him, oh, one of the crazy parts of that chapter too is to find him at a card table
Yeah.
with FBI agents and police and the chief of police and his son, probably, and his grandpa or something. I was like, you know, I mean, like, what happens with that? Like, that's pretty crazy. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Man.
Yo, if I
Yeah, I
ever
thought
find
that
out,
was insane.
yo, if I ever find out that I'm playing with an FBI agent, my hair would go up so fast.
Hey, well,
God
don't
damn.
let us find out. Yeah. But anyway, that's all I had to say. I mean, there's a lot of other things to say, but I want to hear something from someone else. Because that was another interesting chapter. And when we're talking about the life story, and they mentioned Leonard Peltier a lot. They mentioned Anime Aquash. They mentioned a lot of other key figures. in that part of history, and a lot of them are still alive.
Mhm.
And I got Sister Kimberly wants to come up here and say something.
All right.
So just an update. That Leonard Peltier fell down yesterday in prison.
Wow.
He's
Oh,
not getting
no.
the adequate treatment that he should be deserved, and he has internal bleeding.
Oh,
Mm.
fuck.
That's flashing news as of yesterday in the afternoon, and like Sister Kimberly's like, hey, like make sure you mention that. So then that's one of our political prisoners, not just our
Yeah.
one of
Right.
them.
Right.
But anyway, let me let somebody else take the floor and see what happens. See what
Speaking about that, just want to acknowledge, the passing of Matulu Shakur. When he was talking about political prisoners, he was in there for a very, very long time in prison, and he recently passed away. So I want to acknowledge that as well. But yeah, I would say one thing that also stood out to me is that he got his extradition shot down by Governor Brown. I guess that's one of the good things that came out of the Panthers working with Governor Brown, maybe, because I'm pretty sure they had an influence on some of the political decisions of like that, extraditing him back to South Dakota or not. You know what I mean? But that was around that whole time, like Marlon Brando, like Comrade said, he was a big supporter of the Black Panther Party and the revolutionary movement around that time. So having his support, I think that was big. Like Joe said. But yeah, I just think it's just wow that after the governor ain't the governor no more, like politics change all the way up and he has to leave the whole state. He got to go all the way. Put like this, I've been to Nevada one time and that was a long ass motherfucking flight. You know what I mean? So I can't even imagine driving across the country all the way to the Midwest, all the way to the East Coast. You know what I mean? That gotta been a long ass drive. You know what I mean? But it was for survival. You know what I mean? To evade being sent to prison for a very long time or possibly even killed. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
I do remember watching a documentary on this, but I some of this is a lot more detailed than the documentary. So I'm interested in seeing how the next chapter plays out, because he said he don't end up in New York City. You know, he never makes it to New York City. So what does that mean? Do you just stay on the reservation? Like, you know what I mean? I forget what happened in the documentary. It's been a few weeks since I watched it. So I forget how that played out. But go ahead, Joe, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, if I can interject one more time. They were mentioning that Governor Brown at that time, but if I'm not mistaken, Jerry Brown, which might have been a son of him. I'm not sure if they mentioned Jerry Brown, but if it's Jerry Brown, that was a son of him, and also Duke Majan. So like I was kind of like thinking, was there a son of Duke Majan also that took part into the politics of California? But I might be confused because I studied my history and like I might have lost a couple of decades in between. But those are key figures in politics in California. Not that I care about politics, so I can't really speak on them because they're in for themselves. You know what I mean? So, I'm not going to have no part of that. Like the less I know, the better, should I say? But one thing is real important, and like the last reading of the last chapter and today's reading is what was really going on in those times. Like even Dennis Banks and Kamuk have a child. They call her Iron Door. Well, you know what I mean? Like because she was born in prison. I mean, there's so many other things like to just draw off of this chapter that really are I don't know, we can call it heart wrenching, or how can we be more supportive of revolutionary fighters? But they're breaking it down to the real nitty gritty. And then when they start including, key figures, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the movies and so forth, this was really, really happening. And we saying we have to stay positive, and they try to use that word woke. I prefer not to use it, but like you got to stay woke. Well, like stay woke if I was already awake.
Stay critical.
That's not. I mean, there's no woke. Yeah, I didn't just wake up yesterday. I was a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. Kimberly, would you like to throw any 2 cents up in here? Because I know you like to talk.
Well, I just wanted to point out the part where they tried to,
Oh, she stayed.
where they tried to, forcibly sterilize Kamuk.
Ah, yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
they
that
did
was fucked up.
Yeah, they did that oftentimes too, and continue to through, I believe, the 90s, and just another form of genocide. And then they like to also take, and do experiments on women of color and reproductive experience, especially Black women. And it's just like, I just wonder when it's going to stop. And people it's just ongoing. And then also the other part that stood out to me in this chapter was just how beautiful that they were able to bring Sundance to California and have people partake in it. And I guess there was like 500 or 600 people that showed up, I think, from my recollection.
Yeah, at the Sundance.
Yeah.
The first Sundance in California. The
Yeah.
first
So was it
one.
the first? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's an important ceremony. And if you think about it, I was surprised that they were able to do that. What year was this?
Like
didn't he say
19.
like 70? Huh?
Was
like
it
19?
73 or something, right?
Yeah, I was surprised about that because it actually was illegal until 1978 for American Indians to have our religion
Or religious rights, yeah.
Or
that was that.
I don't know if you touched on
active.
that, but yeah, and to have religious, this country of religious freedom that's
Quote,
only for
unquote.
the Christians, right?
Yep.
Right.
until
Right.
1978, because my grandma died in 1976, and we weren't able to bury her the way that we wanted to because it was illegal. So I don't know. That's what I have to add.
I'm sure she got a couple other things to say, but she's being shy.
Well, we appreciate her input on that, because I think that definitely was an interesting chapter. It had a lot of different twists and turns to it. I mean, and when we listen, you talk about this is history and this stuff really happened. One thing that stood out to me, and we know how Jim Jones had a lot of followers. Just to go back to that for a second, but he had 3,000 people, you know what I mean? Then they raised within an hour and a half $20,000, and this is back in the 70s. I want to say that was the late 70s, late 70s. I forget exactly. We had to go through the chapter again, but yeah, it's like, dang, that was way back then, and they was able to raise that amount of money and get that amount of support. You know what I mean? I be thinking about our generation. I'm like, boy, it's hard to raise $1,000 in our generation for real important causes and stuff. You know what I mean? To get the amount of thousands of people out, to stand in solidarity. You know what I mean? And to have big movements like that, you know what I mean? That's just one of many movements back then, you know what I mean?
100%.
That's correct. And then when I heard Comrade Gabby when he was reading, of course they were talking about in 1979 at the time where they were making $12,000 a year. Well, $12,000 a year in 1979 was $1,000 a month. That was $250 a week.
Damn.
Really, that was pretty good money.
Yeah, that was
It's sad,
really
it's
great.
sad to say if you
Yeah.
think about it in today's time, because $12,000 won't even get
Nothing.
you a half a car. You might buy a
Yeah.
Yugo. I think Yugo came out with like an 80 something. You could buy it for
Oh,
$12,000, but like,
oh,
how long did that last? You know what I mean?
indeed. Like $12,000 probably wouldn't even get you the cheapest apartment in New York City.
Yeah.
No. Yes. Go ahead, sister.
I just wanted to add another part that kind of stood out to me. Talking about how Jim Jones became more and more paranoid. And I wonder how much of that was exacerbated by the FBI.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I'm
100%.
pretty sure they were infiltrated, but what was they doing to play on this paranoia? Just like
Exactly.
Huey P. Newton and stuff. You know what I mean? What was
Yup.
they doing to like make you more paranoid? You know what I mean?
We'll probably have to look
Indeed.
if we researched and had to look at the time period. It was probably around election time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Just to weigh where the consciousness of the consciousness of the peoples to like think about something different than what was really happening. And,
Well,
and
How
yes.
much did, I mean, like, how much, to me, like, if he's saying the FBI is following me, all this stuff, and like, he might have had some, of course, mental issues, but just have it exacerbated, to me, that shows the part that the FBI played in all of those deaths.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Over and over and over, you know?
Yeah.
You
When's there gonna
know,
be accountability for that?
exactly.
Right.
You know,
Right.
this right here, what happened here is, Comrade Kwame, you know, it's exactly what I was talking to you about earlier when it comes to the reason why so many liberation movements oftentimes fail. You know, a lot of it, for the most part, you know, obviously, you know, there are external forces, but a lot of it has to do with internal contradictions and internal conflicts. You know, the
Yeah.
Panthers,
And
what happened with Jim Jones, a lot of it is internal. A lot of it is the FBI, the CIA, and the state putting people in from the inside and destroying it from the inside out. You know, that's usually how things like this go. You know.
yeah, that's what I think she was getting at too. Is like, what was the internal manipulation that the FBI was doing? You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
that's coming from external, but they play on the internal contradictions, just like the FBI did with
Yep.
Huey P. Newton and Eldridge Cleaver. You dig what I'm saying? Sending letters back and
Yep.
forth and all kind of different things to heighten those paranoia and those contradictions that was already there and latent internally. You know what I mean? What was they
Yep.
doing with Jim Jones and stuff to see some of the contradictions that they could manipulate to make him even more paranoid? You know what I mean?
Yep. They probably use
But
his religion against him.
yeah,
Honestly, they probably use that.
Yeah. Yeah, we could share something. The comrade sister came up with a good point right now. I know we got some background noise, but if y'all could bear with us on that, comrade sister.
I think I brought this up before, like for the church committee that was investigating all of the FBI's, you know, the COINTELPRO stuff. They never investigated, they stopped because of the shootout. And the firefight, I like to call it the firefight, with Leonard and Bob Robidoux and Dino Butler and the rest of the women and children that were there that day. And so they never really delved into how much the FBI played a part with the COINTELPRO with AIM, because it stopped and it's actually still on hold. And I really wanted them to open that investigation and conclude it. That's all I have to add. So the Senate needs to, you know, they need to do that. No, I don't know why no one's ever really addressed that. Like it just stopped, you know. Like,
right.
they need to address that because the FBI and COINTELPRO, I feel it still today plays like
Today,
100%.
yeah, that's right.
even
They're
if
still
it's
here.
called something different, but it's still today the effects of that, because people are still paranoid today. People are still
Oh, yeah.
lateral violence and the crabs in the bucket mentality and the paranoia and like they need to include that investigation. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing too, I wanted to state, we still are friends with Bob Robidoux's wife.
Okay.
How old is she now?
Oh, she's, I think, I call her Auntie Paulette. She's 83, I think.
83.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
and she's still positive and she's still out there.
She works in the Jericho with the Jericho for political prisoners, and she also works with the Leonard's committee that he's recently put together. He calls it an ad hoc committee because it's temporary for So she's on that too as an advisor, I believe, or a board member. So she's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She sounds
knowledgeable
awesome.
elder sister. And that's all.
Yeah, I was to add to what y'all was saying, like in real time, like we know COINTELPRO still exists. When I was a part of the New African Black Panther Party in 2020 was probably one of the most crazy period of time. I know it was crazy across the whole country and stuff, but just internally when I was with that organization, when we was being infiltrated and stuff like that, it's a lot of stuff just relating. What the question was, what was they doing inside to manipulate contradictions? I know one thing when in the New African Black Panther Party, they would cause situations and then turn around after they cause the situation and point to you and be like, oh, you're being paranoid. Be like, motherfucker, you caused this situation. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? And one of the things that came out of that, the split that happened in 2021 is that we found out that Kevin, and he was out there in San Francisco, Keith Malik Washington. He was the editor for the San Francisco Bay View, but he was also the Minister of Labor for the New African Black Panther Party back at one point. He was working with the pigs for 10 years. And we got, that's the only proof we got that we was infiltrated. We believe we was infiltrated by military intelligence. We believe, like, I believe my bodyguard when I was living in Florida was an agent. You know what I mean? Like, this dude was sophisticated. He would pull out bug readers at like looking for listening devices and actually find them. But we felt like he planted that shit there. No, you know what I mean? Like, he went in when we had a workshop down in Florida where we was learning medic type of response and stuff, you know what I mean? And I had a meeting, long story short, he came into the room with me. He was like, he pulled out a bug reader and he's going around the room, searching the room. And within 15 seconds, he finds a listening device.
There's no
who finds the listening device in 15 seconds if they didn't plant that motherfucker there themselves? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
like, there's no way he found it that fast.
Yeah, nobody. That's only in the movies. You know what I'm saying? So
that's some Hollywood bullshit.
So, like, her bringing that up, I could just explain like our own personal. And I ain't gonna lie, I became very, very aware of everything. I don't feel like I was being paranoid. It was just the people that was around me was creating paranoid situations where you had to be hyper alert because you know it's a lot of shit that don't make sense going on around you and shit. You know what I mean? And so them I think those situations, if a person don't have the inside of what's going on in some of these movements and stuff like that, would be like, oh, they're just being paranoid. But the more you find out and what was going on, you can see how they were adding on to this suspicious atmosphere where making people look at each other and stuff like that. But that's some experiences I could think of today that I actually experienced when I was with the New African Black Panther Party. One day I feel like we're gonna get some paperwork from COINTELPRO that show like some of the people that we thought was working with the pigs or was pigs. You know what I'm saying? Is gonna come out in COINTELPRO papers in the next 20 years and confirm our suspicions. But at least we got one. We got one that, and the only reason this came out because this dude came out of prison, and he wrote the FBI in prison because I guess they cut him off at one point, and he wrote them a letter and talk about, I've been working for y'all for such and such amount of years, and now y'all don't want, I'm a rock star. He called himself a rock star informant. You know what I mean? So yeah, y'all can Google that if y'all want to read up on that. It's Keith Malik Washington. Put that in your Google search and then put San Francisco Bay View. It'll pop right up. It show his handwritten letters that he was in correspondence with the FBI. but he was working with them for 10 years. You dig what I'm saying? So I just bring that, say all that to say is that, yeah, when they get in, when they infiltrate you, they do stuff to create suspicion. They do stuff to create paranoia, but it's them motherfuckers that's doing this shit. You know what I'm saying? They creating the atmosphere where they're trying to make everybody look at each other like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean?
That
And
right
they
there.
start rumors and a whole lot of they do a lot of self-sabotaging. They do a lot of slandering, and they try to pit people against each other. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it causes a lot of people to come off like you're being paranoid, but it's actually based on what they're doing.
You know, that's pretty accurate to what you're saying, Comrade Kwame. Not pretty accurate, it's accurate, it's on point. But what are the things in that point in time, what they were doing, what they called COINTELPRO back in those days? I don't even know what to call it no more. You know, not everybody comes from the neighborhoods that was paranoid, was inbred in us, because we always had to watch out for the man, so to speak. Not everybody has had to deal with that. And especially us comrades of color, well, we had to deal with a little bit more than the rest of the peoples.
Right. And I like I said, I don't even call it paranoid. I call it street instincts. Like
I call it pay attention.
Yeah, it was like your Spidey radar go off, like, nah, somebody about to try to rob us or something, or they trying to set us up so we ain't going over. You know what I mean? Like, it was just natural. When it didn't feel right, it's time to get up out of here because something wrong about this setup right here. You know what I mean? But that's what, for us, they help like people in the streets like us survive and deal with our surroundings and be able to get through situations that might turn out wrong for somebody that don't got them instincts. You know what I mean?
Right. And then when we're going back to Dennis Banks on this, we have a little bit to share on that. And of course, the comrade sister don't want to be on camera. She didn't comb her hair.
Okay.
But anyway,
well, okay. So Dennis Banks, when he walked on, his girlfriend's name is Anita Jo Shiflett, and we used to do a show called Native Daughter Dialogue together. And she actually made a little short video to show the extent of the paranoia. Like, we can read about it, but like, I was shocked when I saw the video, and it's Dennis. So I'll share with you in Messenger. So okay. I'm still looking for it, but she had made a video on it, and you'll see really that it did affect him. Like, so it's no joke, you know.
Yeah, even in its form of speaking or reaching out to the peoples, because when we get to that stage of paranoia, we come across not being our natural selves, but more on the defensive, or the what I call pay attention mode. Like everything. I mean, we look at every light, we look at every corner, we look at every window, we look at every car, we look at license plates, we see facial features. We just like, and it's kind of sad that like society has raised some of us to even be more aware of that. But it is what it is, and that's what we have to face. That's what we have to deal with. And we got to stay strong. We got to stay vigilant. We got to always be on our A game. We got to keep our bootlaces tightened up.
Right.
Be ready, but at any time. And it's kind of hard. It's hard and tiring because it takes a lot of more energy out of us to always be on our alert status.
Yeah.
That'll make a little ball on the top of your neck, like, damn.
Right.
Get stressed out and stuff. But we ain't gonna stop what we're doing, because we're gonna protect ourselves and our communities by any means necessary. So what we're talking about, we're reading about stuff from the 60s and 70s. They're very applicable to today.
Absolutely.
That we're facing as comrades today. And that's all I wanted to say. I know sometimes I get a little excited. I talk too much, but
Don't worry, comrade.
I'm adamant.
Don't worry.
I'm adamant about what we're doing. I'm
And you
adamant
should
about
be.
where we're going. And as long as we continue on keeping our peripheral vision out there and learn, and, you know, sometimes like they say, how do they say, oh, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Mm-hmm.
You can't judge people by their cover either, because they might look shady, they might look down and out, but they could be some of the best people.
Yep.
And sometimes sometimes we look at like, oh man, he got a 3-piece suit on, he must be important. Well, he's important to what? Not our cause. That's all I want to say. Okay.
Yeah, and inside of that, people like, and I'm going back to 2020 with the infiltration, and I'm glad we brought this up because this is something that I don't think talk about in the movement enough. But it's even people that speak dialectical materialism, could break down Marxism, Leninism, Maoism better than a lot of us, but they're actually working with them people. You know what I'm saying? I remember General, I want to say his name was Kelly. He came before Congress and they was asking him questions. And he was talking about, I studied Mao Zedong because I need to know how my enemy thinks. Like he studies our literature. Like the military is studying Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, and stuff like that. These generals know about, our politics, and they use this stuff against us. You know what I'm saying? And our generation has to be aware that our enemy understands our political ideological line, even though they might use it to distort and disrupt. You know what I'm saying? So even that, we got to pay attention. Just because a person might talk good politics and all that stuff and put out different theories and stuff like that, to be able to quote Marx and Mao, don't necessarily mean they always who they say they is. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I learned in 2020 for the first time, that it made me look at a person's practice, because the ones that was doing that, they didn't have that practice though. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They did a lot of self-sabotaging to undermine the new African Black Panther. We have to always be vigilant, and when your comrades have different suspicions, listen to them. Sometimes you might have to investigate. Y'all don't have to jump to conclusions. You know what I'm saying? Y'all might have to investigate the matters more, but don't just assume a person just being paranoid, because you might be overlooking something that their radar system is going off, and yours is just not in that vicinity to go off yet. So
beautifully said.
Yeah, it's almost like those 3-letter acronyms: FB something, CI something, DA something. Anytime it comes with a 3-letter acronym, well, then I'm gonna be very cautious. I'm gonna be very aware. I'm gonna be very alert to that. But I'd rather go into the isms, whether it be Maoism, Marxism, and Leninism. Let's not think about those 3-word acronyms. Let's think about more about the isms. What it was and what it is and what it could be and what we're gonna do to continue making that happen.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
All power,
Comrade Joe. All power to the people. I was just gonna add on what y'all were saying, because because of course you're right. And what you were saying, Comrade Kwame, I don't think you were here for this chapter, but back in chapter 18, chapter 19, what you just said literally happened there, because there was an FBI informant within the ranks of AIM. I forgot his name, Comrade Zen or Comrade Joe. Do you remember his name? You guys were here for that chapter. I forgot his name. Goddamn. I forgot his name.
Hold on. I'm gonna get it right now. Hold on.
All right, but whatever his name was, he slowly but surely started to go. He slowly but surely started to rise up in the ranks of the AIM movement by providing flights for Dennis Banks when he was in exile in Canada, I believe. He would give him flights and he would help him out, and he slowly but surely started to gain his trust. And Dennis Banks himself said that dude, he felt like he could trust him and say things to him that he would only say to people like Peltier and so on and so forth. But guess what? That guy ended up being an FBI informant, and he had other people tell him, "Hey, Dennis Banks, I really do not get a good vibe from this guy. I really do not trust him. There's something about him that's off." But Dennis Banks didn't listen. He didn't really hear out their concerns and it was only until it was evident that he was an FBI agent that Dennis Banks was like, "Oh shit, I fucked up," you know. So it's like these people can talk just like us. They can look just like us. Hell, they might even engage in some boots on the ground activities. But when it comes to the nitty gritty of it, when it comes to whether or not they would die for the movement and they would die for the people, then that's when they start getting cold feet. You know, that's when they start, that's when they start going back on their words. Because exactly like you said, Kwame, you can quote Marx, Lenin, Engels, Stalin, Mao, and every single revolutionary who has ever lived. You know, because anyone can talk the talk, but not everybody can walk the walk. You know, not everyone can actually put that information and that praxis and that Marxism into actual genuine acts, into actual organization and agitation, you know? So the way that I see it, there's a difference between being paranoid and being critical. You know, when you're paranoid, you detach yourself from the masses. You know, when you start getting paranoid, it changes your behavior, and you just start to detach yourself from the movement and from the people. But when you're critical, you say, "This is a problem. How are we going to solve this problem?" Because you can be critical and still engage with the movement and just be more vigilant about things. But when you're paranoid, you start to close yourself out. You start to shut down people. You start to slowly but surely limit who can talk to you and who you hang out with. And that's exactly what these people want. That's exactly what the FBI wants. That's exactly what the CIA wants. That's exactly what they did to Huey P. Newton. They started whispering into his ear. They started worsening his crack addiction, I believe, crack or heroin or whatever. They start to worsen his addiction. They start to whisper into his ears things that he wanted to hear, or things that, or saying things like, "Hey Dennis, there's a traitor amongst you. Everyone's out to get you. You need to up your guard. You need to start to hide out more and more." They will try to actively distance yourself away from the movements. And once they say, "Okay, well, the leaders is far enough away, now it's our time to shine. You know, now it's our time to distort and warp and twist and start petty petty bickering amongst the movement. You know, because that's what they want. They want to detach the vanguard party from the masses. They want to break the spear. You know, and that's why mass slide and cultural revolution is so important. You know, because as Huey P. Newton said, I'm going to pull up his quote right here because I have it. Huey P. Newton, likewise, military victory does not necessarily lead to political victory. In people's war, the people are the instruments of victory, which is the transfer of power to the people. Essential to this is winning the people to embrace a correct ideological and political line. If the masses attain effective political power, but lack a correct ideological and political line, defeat will follow. If the masses are won to a correct ideological and political line, and this is organizationally consolidated, but they cannot yet seize political power, eventual victory is secured and awaits the ripening of a revolutionary movement. In other words, ideological and political line determines everything. And I think that sums up everything that we talked about. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that, comrade. Let me go to Zen. I know she been wanting to say something, and then Joe. And you'll probably be the last one, Joe. We coming up to 2 hours. Go ahead. Zen.
I just wanted to point out, Sister Comrade Kimberly just sent me a couple of videos of Dennis talking about having been infiltrated and stuff. I shared those into our Signal group. The first one is like almost 17 minutes long. So, you know, we might want to look through there and find some clips we can show on air and stuff. I don't know if we got enough time to like play that whole thing, but I just want to give you guys a heads up. Those are in there, in Dennis's works himself talking about that.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that, comrade. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
All power.
Joe.
Oh, Comrade Gabby, I think the FBI agent that you were referring to is Doug Durham.
Yeah, that's what it was. Doug Durham. That's what it was.
Yeah. And a lot of that had to go with the anime Aquash,
She
which
was suspicious. Yeah.
let me let the comrade sister, because
Go ahead.
she's more she got it down more than I do.
Although it's like he had infiltrated and like I hear that Dennis like to play down, you know, how much he did infiltrate, but he was considered like one of Dennis's right-hand men. And one person, interestingly enough, that was very suspicious of him was Annie Aquash. And she was a Mi'kmaq sister, and I don't know if you know her story, but she before she died, she said that if the FBI doesn't kill me, they're still responsible because of jacketing me.
Yeah, she got
You know,
jacketed.
so there's still a lot of controversy regarding her death, but I just kind of wanted to honor her and say you know, and mention her name today.
Appreciate that.
So when we're going back to the history of show and tell, we're going back to the history of FBI intruders into a lot of our movements. Of course, we're talking specifically at this time and period. It's very you know, like they say, history repeats itself. We have to really pay attention to that, like, because it's kind of like trying to play out in today's times. So this kind of like studying this history gives us the chance to understand that, like, hey, we got to pay attention so we can learn from our past.
Absolutely.
Because we all got to, as revolutionary soldiers and soldierettes, we got to stay on our A game. Like I said, keep our boots laced up and tightened up. We got to, you know, keep our words tightened up. We got to keep our actions tightened up. Especially the more we get more involved in a lot of things, we do become put in the limelight. We get put out there like on front status, but we have to lead by example. And that's why I'm really grateful for these little study groups, these little book readings, amongst the many of them that I go on in a weekly basis. It's very educational. It's very positive. It inspires us to keep on moving forward. And I just want to say, I know it's getting close to the end. Stay strong, comrades. We got this.
Absolutely.
All power.
All power to
All
the
power to
people. Well, I appreciate y'all, comrades, coming on. It's always a pleasure talking to y'all. Always informative, always learn something, you know what I mean? And it's a lesson that we can always take away from these. The next one's gonna be this Sunday. Gabby will be moderating it Sunday 2 p.m. So definitely tune in. And we almost done. This like our last, we going into the last week. So we'll be going to the Young Lords book next. So
hell yeah. Comrade Fame.
Yeah.
I just want to say you should probably mention and update everyone on the news of your book being transformed into a movie.
Okay, so actually I got another update. Had a conference with my screenwriter today. what we're gonna do the documentary first, because documentary that's gonna be a lot easier and it helps set the stage for a movie. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be talking to him again in the next 2 weeks, and we're gonna start getting a list of the people that's gonna be in the documentary and stuff. But yep, the movie is gonna be after the documentary, so the documentary is gonna come actually first, and it's be a whole lot easier. And so yeah, be on the lookout for that. I'm very excited about that. I'm definitely excited to this being a jump off for us to then go into the movie next. So be on the lookout for that. I'll let y'all know when it be ready to view by everyone. I don't know what platform we're gonna put it on, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna. Huh?
Soap today.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a good documentary. Because like I said, this dude, he's a very good screenwriter. That writes documentaries, movies. Got a couple. He got a number of movies out. I think I sent it to y'all in the group chat so y'all could see. Like he had a whole lot of good actors and everything. So yep, be on the lookout for that. I'm excited about that. Well, with that said, we're gonna bring this to a conclusion, and everyone have a great night, and I enjoyed the discussion with everybody tonight. All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Revolutionary strength. All power to the people.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Power comments.
Love y'all. See ya.
All right, take care, y'all.
Take care, y'all.